Hello, hello. I'm your host for today, Dr. Carrie Jones, and I am so excited to talk with Dr. Shivani Gupta. She has her PhD in Ayurvedic medicine and turmeric. So, of course, we had to go in deep on both. But first, we laid the groundwork on what is Ayurvedic medicine, because many of you probably are familiar with it and didn't realize how it was showing up in your daily life. We went through the doshas of what people might be, kapha, pitta, or vata. We walked through inflammation, and then I asked her all the questions around turmeric and the herb ashwagandha. They're so popular right now, and yet there's a lot of controversy and myth that goes with them. How do you read a label? How do you know what you're getting is good? What does it actually do in the body? Who should not be taking it? We answered all of those questions, so listen up. Dr. Shivani Gupta, welcome to the Root Cause Medicine podcast. I cannot wait to pick your brain today about all things Ayurvedic medicine and especially spices like turmeric.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Well, we met at a dinner. I had heard about who you were, but we met at a dinner a couple weeks ago. And I thought immediately I have to have her on because there is a lot of misinformation, both about Ayurvedic medicine, but to the spices of Ayurvedic medicine. And of course, every single person is on their curcumin train, which comes from, of course, turmeric. And I thought, why not just have the expert on to answer all our questions around it? Because people say, oh, I tried it, it didn't work, or I bought it from a big box store, I got it off Amazon, nothing happened. And then the opposite side of the spectrum, oh my gosh, it saved my life, all my pain went away, I felt amazing. And so I want to get into the nitty gritty of those kinds of questions and like, what is it? How does it work? What is Ayurveda? And really just go all in the next 45 minutes.
Let's do it.
Well, first of all, how did you get started? How did you get introduced? What made you decide, like, this is the medicine I am going to study and get my PhD in?
Sure. So I grew up in Houston, Texas, to a family that just moved here. My parents just immigrated. And luckily, they were very successful in business. And so we were able to go home to India every single year to see my grandparents and my cousins. And so I grew up in two worlds. When I was in the US and I'd get sick, I'd go to the pediatrician. Back then, they'd give you an antibiotic every time you had a cold. So I would just take my medicine, get better, move on. But every time I was in India, my grandma would reach into her spice cabinet and she'd use these really weird spices, turmeric, hing, cumin seeds, finding ways to heal me that way. And I kept thinking, which way is better? Which one's right? And then later, as I grew up, I realized I have an immune system that just was never a good defensive system. I was chronically sick, catching so many colds, taking antibiotics and Augmentin month after month all through high school. And every time I went to India during that time, my family would be suffering with the really advanced stages of diabetes. So I saw quadruple bypass, stroke, heart attack, leg amputation, Parkinson's. And I kept thinking, okay, so first of all, I have a sickly template in nature here. I'm in trouble. Secondly, diabetes is so rampant. Have we not found a cure? Like, is anyone doing something to figure this out? And so eventually in college, I was so sick in India. I told my parents, look, we have to find a different way. This way is not working for my health. But we're in the land of yoga and Ayurveda. Can we go figure this out? So I went on a quest through India. I studied under all the gurus, and Ayurveda healed me. And I thought, okay, how do I encapsulate this huge treasure chest of knowledge and bring it west in a palatable way, in a bite-sized way that we're actually going to use? And so that's been my body of work for 15, 20 years now, which is what led me to doing the master's and then the PhD. So I was in my master's class studying herbology, studying Ayurveda, and they talked about turmeric. And I realized, whoa, turmeric does all of that. Turmeric could have saved my family. We didn't have to suffer with the advanced stages of diabetes and suffer the way I saw. And I would have had an immune system if I had taken turmeric back then. So that's what led me to doing my PhD dissertation paper on turmeric and led me to being such a super fan of that spice and its applications into Western medicine.
And we're definitely going to get into that, but I want to start first with Ayurvedic medicine because I think it applies to more people than they realize, or they're more familiar with it than they realize. So let's start there. What is Ayurvedic medicine?
So Ayurveda is an entire system of health, healing, and medicine from India that's over 5,000 years old. So similar to how we have traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, which most people have heard of, in India, we had our own entire system. And within that umbrella, The whole goal of Ayurveda is to teach us a way of life. The whole goal is to bring body, mind, and spirit into alignment. And so we do that in a handful of ways. I teach it as 6 pillars. And my 6 pillars are doshas, or our individual mind body constitutions. And knowing your constitution, your specific body type, can help you navigate how you eat, when you eat. Really, how you navigate your whole day is dictated by your dosha. Then we teach about circadian rhythm and the circadian clock, which in modern science has now been proven to be true, but it is a concept from ancient Ayurveda showing us that we can live in rhythm with nature as opposed to going against nature's clock. Then we teach a lot about the gut digestive fire. We call that Agni, and the importance of building that fire every day, honoring that fire and revering it as the center of all health, immune health, brain health. All of it was tied to gut health even back then. Then I teach a lot about self-care, the Ayurvedic self-care rituals. We call them dinacharya, and the daily rituals that help us detox and support a healthier, vibrant body. And then finally, I teach a lot about food, sattvic diet, how to eat, when to eat, all the different ways to honor how we're going to eat to build this healthier body. And finally, herbology, the super spices. So I'm very passionate that the spices and herbs from Ayurveda are similar to superfoods in that they give us so many of the beneficial properties we're seeking, like antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and all those different properties.
And even the actual herbs. I mean, even like ashwagandha, a lot of people are very familiar with. They're probably taking ashwagandha, not even realizing that's where it comes from.
Exactly.
Now, with all of these 6 pillars, let's say 5 of the 6 pillars, do you change them based on somebody's dosha? Because I do want to get into the doshas. There's always the quiz online, like answer these questions and figure out which dosha you are, but then nobody knows what to do with it.
Yeah, you do actually customize everything in Ayurveda to the dosha. I would say in the pillars of gut digestive fire, everyone's got to do the work to build a healthier gut nowadays. We're kind of all not in the best place when it comes to gut health. But yes, our approach can be customized based on your constitution. And then how to eat, when to eat. A lot of those principles from Ayurveda are kind of timeless. They apply to all of us, especially in modern day times, because we don't sit, take a deep breath, honor food as like that most important meal that we're going to sit down to. So some of those can be timeless, but yes, a lot of it you can customize to your constitution.
So let's start with the constitutions. What are the doshas? What do people look out for?
So when it comes to the doshas, we talk about the 5 elements: air, ether, water, fire, and earth. And so we take those elements and break them down, and those are used to define 3 main different body types. And you can have a primary dosha and a secondary dosha. Very few people, but some are 3 doshic, balanced in all 3. And we're all born with our dosha. It's some combination of our parents and that time frame when we came onto earth. But it has to do with our parents' doshas and the constitutions we came with. So for example, air and ether, when combined, make up the dosha called vata. Here in the West, we pronounce it vata. A vata person is going to tend to be thin and wiry. They're going to have small bones. They'll tend to be taller or shorter than people in their typical demographic. So imagine tall and lanky or tiny and petite. This is someone whose mind goes 200 miles a minute. They're like an energizer bunny. They just go, 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 kind of like air and wind or like a ceiling fan. You can imagine it's never not in motion. That's the nature of a vata person. They're the busybody. They're the artist and creative. They create things, but they might never finish them. That's one of their drawbacks is they just go, go, and go on to the next thing. A vata person could have a tendency towards disrupted sleep, disrupted gut, different health struggles that they have because they're never settled. They're always in motion. Imagine dysregulated nervous system because they're always going and going. And so we have certain things we give to a vata to ground them and center them to support them. Then you have the pitta dosha. A pitta person, here in the West, we pronounce it pitta. Yeah, I'm a pitta too.
That's me.
It's definitely me. A pitta person is fiery, dominated by fire and some water. So this is someone who's got reddish skin tone, reddish hair, early graying. They're more medium body. They have a voracious appetite. They get hangry. That digestive fire in them is really strong. I know I get hangry. You're laughing. Us pitta are
Yep, same.
pretty like characteristic. It's funny. We have a tendency towards inflammation. All the words you can use to define a volcano define a pitta. So we get explosive, like we get angry, overreactive, burnt out, meltdown. So we have to manage ourselves kind of like a nuclear reactor. And for a pitta person, because we have that tendency towards inflammation, we also have this tendency towards craving spicy, hot foods, oily foods, and we have to manage ourselves by staying cool, calm, and collected. And then finally, you have the Kapha dosha. Here in the West, we pronounce it Kapha. So the Kapha person is earth with water. So this is someone who's stronger, bigger boned, of the earth. They're more grounded. They have rounder features, curly hair, oily skin. This is someone who's very one thing at a time. They have one thought at a time. They speak about one thing at a time. They're very loyal. When they tend to be imbalanced, they tend to get jealous about the people around them because they're that protective and fierce about the people around them. They have a sluggish metabolism. They have a tendency to have great sleep and they'll sleep in, but then they have a tendency that at the end of the day, when a Kapha person sits down, that's it. They're not getting up again. And so Kapha needs support in moving their energy first thing in the morning, eating easier to digest foods, not hard to digest foods, so that they stay balanced and supported overall. And so it's really insightful when you understand your constitution, because all of a sudden you're given this playbook on yourself, understanding of, oh, that's why in the summer I go nuts. Okay. And we can build a circadian clock around our year, around our seasons, around our time of day, around our individual bodies. And as practitioners, we can get easy insights into what someone's tendency is. So I know when a Vata person shows up, likely tendency that disrupted sleep and disrupted gut is driving the anxiety and the issues. So it makes that easier as well.
Now, you've mentioned circadian rhythm a couple times, and I know that, of course, is one of the pillars. Is the circadian rhythm a general guideline for everyone, or can you individualize that as well? How do you apply Ayurvedic medicine to the circadian rhythm?
Great question. So the circadian clock is a concept right out of Ayurveda. And we look at the different phases of day in that clock tied directly to the doshas. So for example, 10 to 2 on the clock is also the pitta time of day. So in the daytime, when the sun is highest in the sky, pitta is most activated, you're most supported to eat your biggest meal, to digest anything that's hard to digest. So it's a great time to eat your superfoods, your nuts, anything that you find harder to digest, salads even, easier and better to absorb nutrition at lunchtime. And in the same way, 10 to 2 on that clock at nighttime is when we're most supported to clear inflammation. We can leverage pitta, clear inflammation, clear the lymphatic system, clear the glymphatic system, clean and clear everything out. And so according to Ayurveda, we were always supposed to finish dinner by 7, finish and wrap up any work by 8, wrap up home responsibilities by 9, shift into the Ayurvedic self-care rituals that support lymphatic detox, and then get this pristine sleep starting at 10 o'clock so that we can then rise with the sun. So much of Ayurveda is actually living in rhythm with nature so that we're in flow with nature and our health is easier, and bringing body, mind, and spirit into alignment is easier. And the minute we're going against that clock, we're defying it, and thus we're causing dis-ease.
How about for the other 2 doshas? Because people are going to ask, well, what about me?
Yes. So 2 to 6 in the morning and then 6 to 10. And in the evening, 6 to 10 is Kapha. So 6 to 10 in the morning, you have that slower start to the day. You have that time frame to support you to ease into your work day. In the evening, 6 to 10, we're meant to slow down, ease down into the evening. And 2 to 6 is Vata. So that's why sometimes we have a lot of dream states and everything around 2 to 6. At 6 o'clock, we have the cortisol release to support waking up and getting going in our day. And in the afternoon, that 2 to 6 time, we get a little tired. We have a slump in the day. That's our time when we can run around and do work stuff, but we're not going to have the same focus as we will during the other time slots, especially the 10 to 2.
Wow, this is so fascinating. Okay, then you also mentioned digestion and how we have to do things to stoke the fire every day. What does that mean?
So gut digestive fire from Ayurveda is so interesting. We teach that the gut digestive fire is a campfire. It's the way that we're going to support all digestive processes and brain health and really all fires in the body. So I think of it as a campfire. So our job is to take small, medium, and large branches. If you were going to build a real campfire, that's your diversity of your gut microbiome, diversity of nutrition you're going to use to support that gut health. And when you put all those elements together, Ayurveda teaches us to honor morning time as the first steps we do to ignite that fire. Get your campfire going for the day. So we recommend things like aloe vera juice. We recommend things like ginger lemon tea. Ginger lemon tea is going to be warming. It'll be alkalizing, but it'll kick off gut digestive fire. We also recommend using a copper tongue scraper, scraping the tongue gently 7 to 14 times from Ayurveda. Just like in reflexology, all the organs are reflected on the bottom of the feet. All the organs are reflected on the tongue. So when you use a copper tongue scraper, you're gently detoxing all the organs of the body, you're igniting gut digestive fire for the day, and setting yourself up for that campfire to be strong and supported and ready for your first meal, your second meal, and your possible third meal in the day, depending on how you intermittent fast nowadays. But we teach to have those 2 or 3 real meals in a day. Don't snack all throughout. Open the campfire, use it, use those digestive enzymes, and then close the fire down until you're going to open again. So don't waste those resources. And we really look at that fire as the fire of energy, our emotions, our mental fire. Everything is supported if the gut digestive fire is strong. And the byproduct of your gut digestive fire is something we call ojas. This nectar, this byproduct that's created is our vitality. And it takes 30 days to create that. So anytime someone's had a surgery or a trauma or anything that happens, sometimes we can be knocked off the pedestal, fire put out, and it's our job to come back in there, rekindle, re-strengthen fire so that we can move on to building that vitality that we crave.
And with the tongue scraper, does it have to be copper?
Doesn't have to be copper. We just prefer copper because it's one of those antibacterial metals. So it's got those benefits to it, but it doesn't have to be.
And do you tongue scrape twice a day?
We actually recommend it in the morning. We don't necessarily recommend it in the evening.
And then with digestion, you said like close down the campfire. Are there things people should look at doing at the end of their day in particular, or is it more around your last meal? Like don't eat past a certain time, etc.
Yeah, we think of it as once you're done with dinner, you're done. No more snacking, no more nibbling. Also, if you think about your gut digestive fire as a campfire, you would never put water on a campfire right before you were going to cook a meal. So a simple hack from Ayurveda is when you get to a restaurant and they offer you that glass of ice cold water, don't take it. I always look at them like, no, thank you. And they're like, okay, why is she reacting like I poisoned her? I'm like, can I please have room temperature water or hot water with lemon? Because then as you're sipping that hot water, you're supporting the warming of the body and preparation. It's why if you think about it, in Italy and certain countries, they serve hot dishes, hot soup and things like that. And salad comes later, but we're not meant to quench that fire when we're about to use it.
Oh, amazing. I was in naturopathic school, which I'm sure they borrowed from Ayurveda. We were always taught, don't just drink liquids, period, with meals. Don't dilute in general.
Yeah, 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after. That's how I've been taught.
Amazing. Okay, and last question before we get into the herbs and spices. You mentioned the detox principles, the detox activities that you can do to prepare and help support your body. What does that look like?
So in Ayurveda, we actually recommend a pure 3-week detox every year. We call it Panchakarma. And so if you've ever gone to India for Panchakarma, it's very intense. We detox from every single orifice. It's like the oil change of all oil changes, but that's recommended because if the body's going to stay healthy and we're going to build vibrant health, we need to clean and clear the pathways. And so because that sounds too intense to most people, I recommend a seasonal detox. So in Ayurveda, we recommend detoxing at the intersection of seasons, whether between spring and summer and fall, just to clean and clear the accumulation that happens from your dosha in that given season to support you going into the next one. So for example, if you're Pitta, we very much recommend clean and clear before summer, clean and clear after summer. So you're not going to accumulate any of the effects. But detoxing in Ayurveda involves really eating a different diet, dropping the diet down to a gut healing diet, letting the gut digestive fire do its job, clean and clear anything that doesn't belong so that we can enter homeostasis and the body can be in its original healed state.
I should have asked this earlier. Are there different foods that you prefer for different doshas? For example, you had mentioned sort of cold versus hot.
Yes. So Vata people need to eat grounding root vegetable 3 meals a day. Vata people have this tendency. They can run through their day and survive on green juice, tea, snacks, chips, vegetables. It's so interesting. The Vata crew is so different. And their homework is 3 square meals with healthy fat. So I usually say add some avocado, some ghee, some olive oil, and just ground down into 3 meals, which is a lot of homework for them. And then us Pittas just need to remember that we are crazy fires and we need to just plan for our meal. So I carry food around because I know I will get so hangry and you will not want to know me. I know on any given day when I'm eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then I'm supported. But to keep ourselves balanced, we can incorporate coconut water, watermelon, berries, like any food that's cooling is supportive to us. And what's interesting is sweet foods have a cooling effect on the body, which is why when people are anxious and stressed nowadays, they're reaching for sugar. They're saying, oh, I'm a chocoholic. I have a sugar addiction. Maybe it's anxiety and you're reaching for things. So as a pitta, it's good to be aware that when we're frustrated at the end of our day or angry, when we reach for something, is it because we need it or we're just trying to cool down? Because instead you can hydrate with electrolytes or coconut water. Peppermint tea even can have a cooling effect. And then with kapha, easy to digest foods. So in modern day times, we're talking a lot about salads and red meat and these different types of diets that are healthy. But for a kapha, easy to digest is what's healthy to support that metabolism.
What would you define as easy to digest?
Like warm cooked soups, stews, warm prepared meals, vegetables that are easy to digest, prepared in a way that's easy to digest. So rice, if lentils aren't easy to digest for you, don't have them, but rice and cooked vegetables, that kind of thing.
That makes sense. Okay. All right, now let's get into the spices and the herbs, the heavy hitters. And of course, where I want to start off with all things turmeric, because that's your extreme love and area of expertise. As I said, there seems to be a lot of not necessarily miseducation or misconfusion out there, but there's a lot of crap out there. I'm just going to say it when it comes to the product, and it's throwing people off. So let's get to the basics of turmeric. What is curcumin? And then I want to get into product quality.
Sure. My favorite topic. So when it comes to turmeric, fresh turmeric was not typically used in ancient India. In its raw form, it's used as a radish or a garnish. So we never used it. Here in modern day times, we're talking a lot about juicing turmeric. That's a new concept, and I don't drink juiced turmeric. And when you take fresh turmeric and you dry it into the spice, that's when you're really concentrating it down. And that dried spice is used in India the most globally, but it's been used for thousands of years for a ton of different reasons. It's anti-inflammatory, it's antioxidant, antibacterial, so it was used topically a lot. It's antifungal, antiviral, anti-candida, anti-H. pylori, anti-cancer, causes apoptosis in cells that are damaged that need to have cell death. So the list of what turmeric does is so long. What's interesting is out of turmeric, the spice, so many people are incorporating it into their food and consuming it. We need to remember to add black pepper or a healthy fat. We know it's lipophilic, and we know that black pepper increases the absorption 2,000%. And I've never seen an apples to apple studies on curcumin black pepper and curcumin healthy fat. So I plan to invest in that just to prove it to myself in this lifetime, because it was in my conclusion of my PhD dissertation of like, which one is it? Like no one ever funds it apples to apples, which I find interesting. Now, when it comes to turmeric, that spice, only 3% of turmeric is the curcuminoids. And out of the curcuminoids, the one curcumin is the most effective at reducing inflammation. And so what's interesting is a lot of supplements out there use the name curcuma longa, which is just the plant name for turmeric. Or they'll say turmeric, they won't even say extract, they'll say turmeric 1,000 milligrams. And that's just the spice. So it's so important that when we do source a supplement, we're reaching into curcumin extracts, giving you the curcuminoids at the exact right proportion that mimic the plant kingdom. The problem with the supplement world is there's so much adulteration, there's so much room to play. And so a lot of people just buy whatever's cheap, push it to reach a standard, and give it to you without understanding that absorption, bioavailability, and the way the body receives it is going to matter the most. And so what I've loved to see over these last 10 years is there's so much published science on the benefits of curcumin. We see applications for osteoarthritis. There's hundreds of trials, randomized controlled trials, that show that curcumin is as effective as NSAIDs with less adverse effects, without damaging the kidneys, without damaging the body. And so that application to me is the most fascinating, is how do we put it into play where everyone knows that this is an adjunct solution instead of NSAIDs for chronic joint pain? That's been the body of my work. Then we know it has applications for rheumatoid arthritis. Then we know it also has an effect and a part to play in metabolic syndrome. So when it comes to epithelial lining, cholesterol, blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, we know it has a protective effect to our symptoms. It has a protective effect between prediabetes and diabetes. So if you're on that line, it's beneficial, and for diabetes symptoms as well. We know that it can function like metformin on that same AMPK pathway. And I recently presented at A4M Vegas, and I talked a lot about the longevity aspects of curcumin. It has an impact on extending our telomeres, on our sirtuins. Like I mentioned, the AMPK pathway. And so there's so much possibility there, I find, for not only practitioners who are working with people with metabolic syndrome to just apply it. Then when we talk about joint pain, there's a lot of usage and so much science there. And then as well in the longevity space, using it there. I actually don't see any area of medicine where we wouldn't find a use for curcumin. It's interesting. There's so much science coming out right now. The British Medical Journal recently published a study showing that curcumin is as effective as PPIs, which means all of GI could use it. We know functional medicine is using it heavily. So I just find it to be this wonder plant that's well received, well utilized. And I'm working with different teams around the world. I have a team in Bombay who's doing a lot of studies on knee osteoarthritis and its applications there. And I'm working with a geneticist on why is it that so many of our genes in the body are ready to receive it and use it. It's kind of, I don't like the word miracle because that kind of puts it in a different category, but it has pretty miraculous effects.
That is amazing. Now, I want to give a couple definitions for people. One, PPI, proton pump inhibitor, just for those of you who have maybe heartburn. Two, NSAIDs, those are the over-the-counter pain medications that maybe you're taking when you have a headache or your knee hurts. But I do want you to explain the AMPK pathway, and then I'm going to ask you how to read a label, because I think that has the most people confused on, my bottle says turmeric, like you said, or my bottle says curcumin. Is it possible it's 500 milligrams of all curcumin, or how much of it is just the spice? But first, let's explain the AMPK pathway.
Yes. So curcumin has a positive effect when it comes to glucose in the body, and it's via the AMPK pathway and the liver that it does that job. So it functions like metformin in the body. And it's actually, there was a scientific study that showed that it's effective with metformin when used in metabolic syndrome. And when it comes to the labels, that took me till my PhD was done before I could understand the labels on the supplements. There's so many different versions of labels out there. I think it's so important that you look for turmeric extract standardized to 95%. That standard is really important. That means someone has met at least that big standard and isn't playing games way down here. So I think that's the first step. Within turmeric and curcumin standardized to 95%, unfortunately, we don't go much further in defining how we got to that number. And so that's where it's important to work with a company focused on turmeric instead of just a company that's built 500 supplements and they threw a turmeric supplement together because they're like, well, turmeric will make money. Let's just make one. Because I have seen turmeric supplements in product lines where it's just turmeric, 1,500 milligrams. They're giving you the powder. Or they say turmeric extract. You have no idea what the potency of that is. Or they'll use turmeric and they won't use black pepper. I'm like, guys, it's called Google. It's kind of basic. So there's just a lot of play with the labels. And it's so important that you look for that standardized to 95% and then something added for the absorption.
Which, like the black pepper, as you said.
Yeah, black pepper or healthy fat.
Now, if somebody's listening and they have found a product that is standardized to 95%, is there a general dosing range? Obviously, we can't give medical advice, but generally, because obviously we see the gamut out there.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? Typically, the recommendation is going to be 1,000 milligrams a day of curcumin. That's standard. And I think that's a great dosage. Take your curcumin twice a day. We know it has a fast uptake in the body, so spreading it out is better. So you are supported for more of a time period and time spread.
Now, you mean 1,000 twice a day or 500 twice a day to equal 1,000?
500 twice a day to equal 1,000. That's your bare minimum. I think that does the job for most people. Some people, I tell them, look, add on a third dose, a third 500 milligram capsule, just so you're supported at night, throughout the night, and you wake up with less stiffness and pain in the joints. That just depends on the person. Now, what's funny is a lot of us think more is better. And so we'll find a supplement that says, oh, we're giving you 2,000 milligrams. That's not better. That might just mean they need 2,000 to give you the job of 1,000. And so it's important to look at, you don't have to take 2,000, 3,000 milligrams of curcumin a day to get the result. You'll get it within the 1,000 milligrams. And then based on your issue, you can increase. So sometimes if I need more immune support, I'll take more. But that basic amount, 1,000 milligrams, gives you the coverage you need.
And is there anyone who shouldn't take it, or are there side effects we should be aware of?
Generally, we don't have too many side effects. The main side effect we worry about with curcumin is that it's a vasodilator. It has blood thinning effect. So anyone on a blood thinner should not take a curcumin supplement. It's high risk to do so. We do have a little bit of watching people who have low iron because it is having that blood thinning effect. So you have to keep an eye that you're going to supplement your iron sometimes.
Like pregnancy, breastfeeding?
Pregnancy, breastfeeding, we have no science on curcumin during those timeframes. So in the United States, we're not going to recommend it.
But we do know from a spice standpoint that a lot of pregnant and breastfeeding women probably eat the spice if they're eating any type of Indian food or adding the spice that they've bought from their local store, Get Organic, to whatever they're cooking, correct?
Correct. Yes. And then just make sure you're adding black pepper or healthy fat to get the benefits.
Making sure. Exactly. Okay. This is so fascinating. Is there anything else about turmeric that I have missed for people that we need to hone in on?
I think just highlighting the fact that it's such a powerful anti-inflammatory is important. We know that in modern day times, most of us are inflamed, and we know every itis in the body is inflammation. We know metabolic disease. So much of what we're struggling with is based in inflammation. So I love that turmeric is this natural plant, well received by the body, understood by the body, that's going to significantly reduce inflammation. We have over 10,000 published science studies on this topic. We have randomized controlled trials. There is so much science being published around the world because it's so effective for inflammation. Then the fact that it reverses oxidation. So as we're aging and we're getting stiffer and we feel like the Tin Man, and people complain so much about their stiffness of their joints, reversing oxidation is also very supportive for all anti-aging effects. And then again, the immune modulating aspects I find very fascinating. So we see support for PCOS, autoimmune conditions. We know it helps support gut membrane lining of the body. It has a gut protective effect. It has an adaptogenic effect in the body as well. So if the body is stressed, it's going to give you some stress resilience. So it really is this Swiss Army knife where you can open it up and it's got something for almost everything. I personally have used it heavily for gut health and immune health. And that's where it's been the most phenomenal tool in my toolkit. I have an immune system now where I can travel, knock on wood, all the time, and I never get sick. So to me, it's been the best support for me.
Oh my gosh, I love this. Okay, besides turmeric, what is your second most favorite spice?
Ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha, I knew it.
I love ashwagandha. If I had time, I would do a whole PhD paper on ashwagandha because I think it's that next one coming down the pipeline where people are finally starting to see Ayurveda has a treasure chest of these. Like these are just the ones we know about. But if I have time with people, I'm like, have you heard of your cumin seeds and what they can do for you, and your coriander and hing, asafoetida? I heal gut health issues all day in people with all the different spices in our treasure chest. But ashwagandha, we have a lot of science behind. We know that it's as effective as 14 different psychoactive drugs that we're using currently for anxiety and depression. We know that it has a neuroprotective, neurocognitive effect in the body. Speaking of which, we know about turmeric for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and neurocognitive, and it helps stop amyloid plaques from forming in the brain. But in ashwagandha, it's specifically known to be known for those things. It's a powerful adaptogen. So if you're stressed and anxious, it'll calm you down a few notches. If you're depressed and having the blues, it'll lift you up. It's such a powerful mood support. And when people are taking it, I've seen they tell me, look, I'm not overwhelmed anymore. I'm just able to be calm and focused. So I love that. It gives you this strength and this vitality. So it's another one of those powerhouses out of Ayurveda.
And what's interesting with ashwagandha, it has definitely become more popular. It is absolutely a favorite adaptogen of mine. But I am noticing companies are starting to maybe patent strains or ingredients of it. And it appears regular old ashwagandha isn't what it used to be. And so similar with turmeric, I want to understand if somebody just goes to the store or looks online, that is all ashwagandha created equal? Or are we back to the same where it's important we understand where we're buying it from and what the label says?
You know what's interesting? I was just in India meeting suppliers in Hyderabad and Bombay, and the Bombay supplier has a new ashwagandha with special actives that nobody else has. And we have so much science, of course, on the benefits. And that's the world of phytobotanicals right now. They're pushing so hard for published science to differentiate themselves because it is a very competitive market. You want to have an edge above everybody else. The problem with ashwagandha is you can take the small branches, the big branches, everything, and crush it together. And so my invitation would be try different ashwagandhas, maybe buy 2 or 3 over 3 months and test for yourself which one works. Because for me, I won't create something in the market unless I know it works. And I am still playing with ashwagandha to find one that I think actually calms down that pitta fire and intensity that I have at the end of the day and keeps me calm and focused within all the chaos of life. So I think ashwagandha, yes, there's a huge quality differentiation that happens, and you have to really keep trying them or find functional medicine level practitioners who have the better ones that they've tried and recommend.
And is there a time of day that is better to take it?
It's interesting. So I've had men take it during the day and they love it because it just gets them calm and focused. I've had women take it during the day who say, that made me too calm. I've got a lot to do. I can't get that chill. What was in that thing? I'm like, I just find good ashwagandhas. So a lot of women like to take it at night because it's got that calming effect for sleep, and men during the day. But I think that just is down to the person.
And similar to my question with turmeric, is there a particular dose range that you like to work with?
My understanding from the Ayurvedic doctors and practitioners I work with and the Ayurvedic pharmacologists, 200 milligrams is good per day.
Total.
Total.
Because you see it out there at 500, 1,000, 1,500.
I would do 200 to 400 maximum. So 200 at a time, 400 per day, and then cut off there.
Okay. And is there anyone who shouldn't do ashwagandha? I have heard, again, gotta love the Reddit boards, where they talk about ashwagandha and anhedonia or worsening depression in some people. And I didn't know if there was truth to that.
I have not read that. I actually don't know any contradictions to ashwagandha yet that I've seen. Other than watch out with thyroid. I've read it both ways with thyroid. Like it's good and it's bad. So in Ayurveda, I haven't dug deep enough into that to have an answer.
And for what she means by thyroid, for everyone listening, we've heard if you have hypothyroid, it can help support it, so improve it. And if you have hyperthyroid, then maybe you shouldn't take it. Talk to your practitioner about it. It might make it more hyper, which we don't want. Okay. Amazing. Oh my gosh, this is such a wealth. And ashwagandha, can you take it together with turmeric? Do they play well together?
Definitely. They do play well together. It's funny, I created a combo of them. And so not everyone, I think, should take ashwagandha, again, because it can be too calming for some. But pretty much everybody can take turmeric as long as you're not on blood thinners.
Okay. All right. Oh my goodness. Fantastic. Last question as we wrap this up. I'm all about practical and tactical. This is the Root Cause Medicine podcast. Give us your top 1 or 2 practical, tactical tips as it comes to Ayurvedic medicine, everything we've talked about, turmeric, ashwagandha, to leave people with so that they can finish up this podcast and immediately feel ready to be proactive.
Nice. I recommend taking turmeric every day. I think cycling with it is good. You can take certain weeks off, certain seasons off. But to me, turmeric is that perfect plant we can put into our vitamin cabinet that we take every day. That's kind of our insurance policy. Because from what I've seen, as we're aging, we need some supports here. The body's going to slow down, and I would like to defy that. I want my immune system to stay up, my gut digestive fire to stay up. I want every cell that's not meant to be there to be kicked out. So to me, the turmeric is like the number 1 defense I've got on board. And then my number 2 would be the tongue scraper. Tongue scraping is a simple habit. You can habit stack it right on top of brushing your teeth. You're going to have a different mouth feel. So I mentioned gut digestive fire and detoxing all the organs of the body. It also helps clear the taste buds so your taste buds work better. And we know that oral health is heart health. And we know that oral health is your gut microbiome health. That's the beginning of the gut microbiome. And so that simple habit has helped so many of my clients when it's come to their constipation or different underlying issues. And it's a simple thing. 1 tongue scraper is $10. It's like a free health habit because you can keep 1 for the rest of your life.
I have my tongue scraper, of course, next to my sink. So I love those tips. All right. The big question, tell everyone where they can find you and about your products.
Perfect. So my website is shivanigupta.com, my name, ShivanIGupta, and I'm at dr.shivanigupta on Instagram. My products are Fusionary Formulas, Fusionary, and you can go there to check out our turmeric and our adaptogenic teas. I create sleep teas and solutions that are Ayurvedic. We're best known for our turmeric and our inflammation relief for chronic joint pain and the different issues people deal with in their health. And then my podcast is the Fusionary Health podcast.
And we will have all of that, of course, linked in the show notes below. I so appreciate you coming on the Root Cause Medicine podcast today, because these are all questions that I thought as a doctor I knew the answers to, have done enough as a naturopathic doctor in herbs, but I love getting to talk to an expert who's actually talking also to suppliers in India who deal with this every day, who's involved in the research. I think that is so important. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Rupa Health, the best place to order, manage, and track results from over 30 different lab companies in one single place for free. It's going to take you under 2 minutes to sign up, and you can order any functional medicine lab for your client in under 30 seconds. Let me show you how it's done. So here's our beautiful interface. I'm typing in the name of my client, selecting the lab that I want to order for them, and hitting send. From there, Rupa and their amazing team handle the rest. They email the client, collect payment, and even offer an interest-free 3-month payment plan. We've also built the world's largest library of information about chronic health conditions, the lab tests that can help you find the root cause, and the evidence-based interventions that you can use to help people heal from them. It's called the Rupa Health Magazine. There, we have in-depth articles about almost any health condition you can imagine. And we give you step-by-step protocols that other clinicians have used to help their clients heal and that are verified by evidence-based sources. You should totally check it out, and it'll transform your practice. And we can't wait to see you. So make sure you sign up today at rupahealth.com.